Hello everyone, let's have more news about the Lakers, but first don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Rich Paul answers how many NBA seasons LeBron James has left in him. Los Angeles Lakers forward. LeBron James has had a historic career over his 22 seasons in the NBA. He is the league's all-time leading scorer with 4 MVP awards, 4 championships, and 4 Finals MVPs to his name. Additionally, he is a 21-time All-Star and a 20-time All-NBA selection, with the possibility of being selected for his 21st All-NBA team this season. In the 2024-25 season, James averaged 24.4 points, 7.8 rebounds, and 8.2 assists per game. However, the Lakers faced an early exit in the playoffs, being eliminated by the Minnesota Timberwolves in just 5 games. This marks the second consecutive year the Lakers have been bounced in the first round in the same number of games. Rich Paul, James's longtime agent and friend who manages Clutch Sports, appeared on The Rich Eisen Show to discuss various topics, including how long the 40-year-old intends to continue his career. Paul admitted that he is unsure about James's future plans. "I have no idea," Paul said. "Right now I'm focused on this draft. Normally our process is kind of weigh everything and see how he's feeling and those types of things. We know he's dealing with the knee thing, but yeah, same process that it's been for I don't know how many years." Paul said he doesn't have conversations with James about how long he will want to play. He said he goes into each season as if he will continue to play. Eisen then asked Paul how many more seasons he believed James could play. "I think physically he can play several more years," Paul said. "I don't think it's the physicality or physical aspect of it. I think it's where are you at mentally. I think with all of these guys, we put so much on the individual. There are a lot of layers to success as an individual." Paul mentioned that when it comes to a player like James, many decisions need to be made regarding the locker room dynamics and the overall roster. He believes that the Lakers' history, combined with the presence of a player like James, means they will face the best performance from every opposing team. Therefore, Paul feels that if James decides to return, he will want to ensure he is prepared to handle that challenge. James has not said anything concrete about his retirement. As of now, it appears that James will be entering his 23rd season next year, which would set a record for the most seasons played in NBA history. Now let's go to another video. Don't forget to leave a like.
Or foul.
Of course they're fair. He's his longtime agent. David Falk's not a neutral observer. He's a provocateur. I've known him way more than half my life. Neighbor, news source for many years, now friend. He's a provocateur. He's there to agitate for Michael Jordan. Has anybody ever had a person do any better than David Falk on behalf of clients? I think not. And so he's not a neutral observer. He's making this comment about his dear, dear close friend, he was the advisor, mentee, Michael Jordan. Would he have 15? Not 15. Would he have more? Yeah. The notion about LeBron, the reason I hate the GOAT conversation, it almost requires you to say something negative about someone. There's nothing negative to say about LeBron. There isn't. There just isn't. The basketball player, nothing negative. He's one of the greatest of all time in any team sport, period. Is he Michael Jordan to people like me? Do you want to be David Falk? No, never going to be. I'm not going to say that LeBron has to be seen as better than Magic. I'm not going to say LeBron has to be seen better than Kobe Bryant. Not going to say it. So if David Falk wants to say that as someone who is tag teamed with Michael Jordan for decades, he can say it. And the people are upset because it's not good enough to say LeBron is one of the handful of greatest players ever. If that's not good enough for you, too bad.
Who wants to take it next, Burke?
Let me say this. LeBron James is the greatest player of all time in my eyes. And the reason being, and I've told you this a few times, Stephen A., Wilbon Molly, is because it's no other player in the history of sports that was under the amount of pressure like LeBron James since the age of 16. That's why I put him over MJ. At the age of 16, the magazine, being called the chosen one, King James, the pressure that he had coming into the NBA, the guys that were hating on him before he got to the NBA, and I'm talking about his peers, some of the guys on his teammates, guys that were preying on his downfall, and he has exceeded expectations. I have no problem with David Falk's comments though, and he's absolutely right. Jordan would have had more championships if he could have handpicked some of the guys he wanted to play with. And and this is part of LeBron's story as well, when it comes down to LeBron being able to run the front office and be the GM. He is able to pick the players that he wants to play with. He's been able to go where he wanted to go. So, I mean, it's part of it, but if Jordan had a choice, and if he could have played with or added a Charles Barkley, or would play with a Clyde Drexler, absolutely he would have had more championships. I have LeBron as my GOAT because of the pressure like no other player has ever been under in the history of sports, but I have no problem with his comments at all.
Well, before I give my take, let me say this to my brother Mike Wilbon respectfully. I can find plenty of negative things to say about LeBron James. Without hesitation. I won't, but I could. Let me stick to basketball and tell you this. He's on the Mount Rushmore. He's one of the greatest players to have ever lived. I have him number 2 all time. But I appreciated and respected your take, Wilbon, on Get Up earlier when you talked about Kobe needing to be in that conversation, Kareem needing to be in that conversation. I got no issues with that. But to me, LeBron James is number 2 all time. The thing that we have to understand that's important about this conversation is when we debate the GOAT, the negativity of it comes from LeBron and his camp, nobody else. When we say he's number 2 all time, we're appreciating the fact that of the thousands upon thousands of players that have played in the NBA since 1950 rather, okay? LeBron James, there's only one player we look at and we say definitively we think was better, and that was Michael Jordan. What did I say to Rich Paul one day? You act like that's an insult. Rich Paul's response, it is an insult. Because that is how they have acted when it comes to the GOAT conversation. And that's why a guy like Mike Wilbon has been on the #1 show in sports television for the last 25 years. Congratulations to you and my man Tony Kornheiser. We're #1 in the mornings. They're #1, period. They're #1, period. We know our place. Here's the deal. Mike Wilbon has said this publicly. We're not some PR machine for you. Didn't you say that about LeBron and his kid? You said we ain't some PR. You know, we gonna watch what we watch, and we come to one. Even in saying that he's the greatest you've ever seen, Kendrick Perkins, you have said, ain't no damn PR machine. I'll say what I mean and mean what I say. Mm-hmm. So you just happen to feel that he's the greatest, but you were recognizing the fact that they were trying to compel people to say he was the greatest. Michael Jordan didn't say that about himself. Kobe Bryant didn't say that about himself. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar didn't say that about himself. Bill Russell didn't say that about himself. Tim Duncan didn't say that about himself. Nobody said that. Nobody but him and his camp. Steph Curry hasn't said that about himself. Steph Curry has never called himself.
What's going on, everyone? So, this offseason, the Lakers need to address the center position, and one unrestricted free agent is Brook Lopez, who the Lakers are very familiar with. Played with the Lakers. He never really wanted to leave the Lakers, and Lakers could look to bring him back this upcoming offseason. According to some executives, the anonymous executives, believe that the Lakers may have even touched base with Brook Lopez already about potentially coming to the Lakers. Now, personally, I wouldn't hate it, not as a starter. I don't really like the idea of him in a starting role. I don't think he's really the kind of fit that the Lakers need and are looking for, particularly with a Luka Doncic. In a backup role, I wouldn't hate it. I know he's 37 years old, and I know people are going to look at it, he's too old or whatever. He's still one of the better rim protectors in the NBA, right? He's still a guy that can spread the floor. He can still make plays. He's still a very good basketball player. He did kind of have some struggles in the back end of last season, right? Which At times they even wouldn't play him, right? They were kind of going small at times, or even Giannis at the 5. I even saw that a little bit in the playoffs. But Brook Lopez, again, in a backup role, if he's cheap enough, it really comes down to the price. I think you could do worse than him, right? But again, I think the Lakers should. I'd rather kind of go a more youthful, athletic route. I'd rather go get a Clint Capella or, a Jericho Sims, kind of go that route if you can. I think you could probably get Jericho Sims for around the vet minimum, maybe a little more. A Clint Capella, if he gets the starting job, right? Because most teams are probably going to look for him in a backup role, right? Well, the Lakers, he actually makes a lot of sense for them to start, right? Maybe, that can incentivize him to come to the Lakers for like the mid-level or taxpayer mid-level exception or something like that. I think that would just be better approaches. So now you have kind of more lob threats, more big physical interior guys. Look, Brook Lopez can handle his own on the inside. He can still at any point dump the ball down to him and he can go to work. He's a guy that can generate offense. He's not a guy that is, even if he is, let's say, starting to hit a decline, I don't think he's going to fall off a cliff to the point where he's just like unplayably bad, right? Because he's not so reliant on this like insane athleticism. It's not like Brook Lopez has been this insane athlete, right? He's a guy that really just evolved and adapted and molded over the years, to his credit, right? He was a guy that was strictly old school, back to the basket, dump it down to him, 20 and 10 center that would just be able to score and operate around the rim. And as the NBA progressed and as his career progressed, he developed and became a legitimate that 3-and-D center who I still think has some value and I do think could make some sense for the Lakers. It's just not my like preferred option. Again, if you could get him on a vet minimum in a backup role playing, 20 minutes a night, fine. I'm not against it at all. But again, it wouldn't be my ideal. I think personally the Lakers should probably stay away from him. I think the Lakers should focus again kind of more on youthful centers. I think we really need that injection of athleticism. I mean, you look at kind of like what's going on with, look at teams like Indiana and OKC and these teams. A bunch of athletes. I was talking about it months ago. Lakers just need athleticism, right? They need guys like real athletes. And that's a real issue. And I don't think Brook Lopez helps in that regard, right? 37 years old. I know people look at the age and immediately go, absolutely not. The only thing I care about is can he play, right? Like LeBron's 42, right? And he's still a top 10 player in the league. I care about how good you are, not your age. And it's not a guy we're looking to have on the roster for the next 12 years, right? It's a guy that would kind of be a gap, a stopgap in between, which I wouldn't hate if Brook Lopez was kind of that stopgap. Again, I have some preferred options, but you're talking about a guy, he's 7'1", 282 pounds. Big, physical, he can handle the inside. Right, he can bang with all the big boys in the Western Conference in particular. You look at Zach Edey and Jokic and Ivica Zubac and all these guys. I think he would be fine as far as like an interior presence goes. Can block shots at the rim, can get a couple steals, can make plays out of the post. Really good at just reading defenses. Also spread the floor. Right, he's more of like a LeBron center than Luka center. Right, he's not really that lob threat that you'd want, like where he's just hammering them home all game, right? Where he's more of a guy that would be ideal for LeBron because LeBron likes to kind of spread wide, put his head down, get to the basket, and then be able to kick out to the shooters, right? Whether it's a big man or, the corner three. Where Luka's more of like, getting to the teeth of the defense, kind of, create that collapse by the defense and then easy lob threat outlet pass from the dunker spot. That's kind of where Luka likes to generate his, where LeBron's kind of more, everyone spread wide, get out of the way, let me just kind of bully to the basket, right? So Brook Lopez does make sense in that regard, which is why I wouldn't hate, like if the Lakers were to get a Clint Capella and then added in like a Brook Lopez and then went and got like a Jackson Hayes, brought back a Jackson Hayes or, brought in Christian Koloko or something like that. I don't hate that. Like I don't mind having kind of like, you have Brook Lopez as like your skilled center. You have Clint Capella as like your physical lob threat center. And then you have like Jackson Hayes or Koloko as just like your floor running big. Cool. right? So you can like get different looks, kind of have, like the Anthony Davis, the JaVale McGee, and the Dwight Howard. Obviously, those guys aren't, what those guys were, but, the idea of like having those different skilled versions. Like, hey, you want a floor spacing big, you want to run these types of actions. Cool. You have a Brook Lopez you can throw out there, right? Let him operate with LeBron. When LeBron's on the court without Luka, boom, Brook Lopez is in the game, right? When Luka's on the court without LeBron, you got a Clint Capella in the game, right? When, you just want to kind of run and gun, right? Maybe have LeBron kind of run the point and just have a bunch of young guys around him with, a Christian Coloco or Jackson Hayes, and they're just sprinting. Cool, perfect, right? Kind of push the pace. There you go, right? Like, I don't hate the idea of having these different looks, but let's get into Brook Lopez, what he brings and what he provides, right? So he's never been a great rebounder, which is another concern to mine. Right? Like he's a guy that, even for his career is just a 6 rebound a game guy. His best rebounding season was 7.8. And that was back in Brooklyn in 2015, 2016. This is a guy that, even the last few years is 5.2 rebounds per game. You could argue, when you had Giannis, he didn't really need to be there to rebound. And he was, it's kind of hard to generate rebounds when you're shooting 10 threes a game, right? Like, so to his credit, but even when he was a back to the basket guy, he was still like a 6 to 7 rebound a game guy, right? So he's not like this excellent rebounder, which is another reason I kind of prefer him in a backup role. But the good thing that I like about him is he plays, right? You look at the last few years, right? He played 81 games, 68 games, 70 games. He had 13 games in 2021, 2022. And then he had 78 games, 79 games, and 80 games. So, and then, you can go back as far as 2014, and he had 72, 73, 75, 74, 81, 68, 70, 13, 78, 79, 80. So the guy's giving you 75 games a season. So that's good that you have somebody that's reliable even through his age, even through, him into the older years. He's still been able to be healthy and be out there on the basketball court. Best ability is availability, which is another reason why I guess you can argue it'd be good to kind of have a guy like that to where you're going to get 70 games a night from him. But you look at last season, 80 games played, 31.8 minutes per game, averaged 9.7 attempts per game, shot 50.9%, so basically 51% from the floor, 37.3% from three-point range on 4.7 attempts, shot exactly 5 attempts on 63.6% from two-point range, had an EFG of 60%, shot 82.6% from the foul line on 1.7 attempts, had 5 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, 2 blocks, and 13 points per game. So again, he's basically a 13-5 guy with a steal and a block per game in 32 minutes, right? That's fine. I would like that in a backup role. Give me 20 minutes per game, right? Can he be a 10-5 guy, right? Give us, an assist, a steal, and a block a game, right? And limited minutes, right? In a backup role. Like you kind of go back to, let's say 2021, 2022, he played 23 minutes per game, right? He was 12.5 points, 4 rebounds, half an assist, a steal, and 1.2 blocks per game. Perfect, right? Like if he could be that, perfect. Give me 12 points, give me 5 rebounds, give me, 1.5 blocks and a steal a game, dish out the occasional assist, spread the floor, knock down the 3 ball, shoot, 38% from 3-point range, 37% from 3-point range. Beautiful. Right? Like, I don't need him to necessarily be a superstar or anything like that. Just personally, I would prefer to see the Lakers kind of stay away from that, kind of avoid that. I'd rather go with the Jericho Sims, something like that. But again, I do think that there is an argument to be made for just having the different looks, right? The more versatile you can be as a roster, the better, right? So if you have that, like let's say you do get rid of Jackson Hayes, right? Like you could still bring in a Jericho Sims. I don't know if he'll want to go to it where he's like the third big, but point is like if you can have like I said, a Capella, or let's say you go trade for Nick Claxton, right? Well, then now you have that kind of skilled or that floor running, athletic, versatile big, right? So you have like the skilled defensive big, Then you have, your skilled offensive big man who can also defend and protect the rim. And then, if you can bring in, like I said, a Hayes or Koloko or something like that, that can now run the floor and then be that lob threat, right? You kind of just have these different looks, these different skills, or you just go get a big physical kind of stocky guy, maybe a Trey Jemison at that point, where it's just like he's in there just to be that enforcer, right? I don't hate that. But let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. What do you think? How do you feel? Do you like the idea of Brook Lopez? Do you hate the idea? Kind of mix in the middle. Either way, let me know down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.
May have interest in actually putting on the court and being part of their future. So I think what the Lakers do with Rui is going to be absolutely critical. And you're right, if you're going to see any significant moves, aside from the Lakers finally saying we give and surrendering Austin Reeves in a deal, if it's going to be something significant, it's probably going to have to include Rui Hachimura. So we're going to find out a lot here about how the Lakers view him. Is he a key piece alongside Luka for the next 5 years or not? And the challenge is the answer could go either way. It could be a yes because the Lakers could talk themselves into how good he's been offensively. It could be a no because of the defensive concerns. So I think a lot of it's going to depend on what's out there, what you can potentially flip him for. I don't think he's a player that they should be steadfast, no, we're not moving him, or yes, we are moving him. A lot of it's going to depend on what's available. But Rui is a very, very fascinating case this summer, and I think that he gets maybe not enough credit for what he's done offensively and maybe a little bit too much negativity for the defensive side of the ball, although that could be just kind of holdover from the way the playoffs ended for the Lakers.
I agree with you. I think that, one, he is better defensively than people give him credit for, and then maybe I've even given him credit for at times. I think that the one thing is just that the Lakers, if we're being honest, 4 of their top 5 players are power forwards defensively. And when your 2 best players are both power forwards defensively in LeBron and Luka, like there's going to be just a certain limitation to other guys who play that role defensively. Then if we're potentially factoring in DFS, either opting in or opting out and re-signing or maybe even extending, then it's like, okay, well, you have a bit of a logjam there and you need to allocate those financial resources to other positions. And while I think Rui has done an adequate job defending threes and wings, I still think he's at his, like, the optimal use of Rui would be like a stretch 4 for a team, either as a starter or coming off the bench, depending on the roster construction, but like him guarding 4s, him guarding the Julius Randles and those types of guys. So that is just not the makeup of the Lakers roster. And I think if we look at the quartet of Rui, LeBron, Luka, and Austin, there's a clear limitation there to how good that group can be together defensively. They just don't have that rangy, long, high-level defensive wing, the Bridges, the Anunoby, the Hart that I think they need. So regardless of whether they keep Rui or not, I think if they can add that wing, I think they have to seriously consider moving him to the bench. But the reason I consider him the pivot point is just because when we're talking about the other guys, right? So if you combine Gabe, Maxey, Dalton, and Shake, you're still under 30 million collectively with those 4 contracts. So there are plenty of guys you could get in the conversation for a Nick Claxton, a Daniel Gafford, with some combination of those guys financially. But if you want to do, get a $30+ million guy, or you want to do 2 separate moves, then you almost certainly have to include Rui. It's really hard to just make the math work without putting him in there. So that's where I say, like, if the Lakers are serious about upgrading the roster and making some bigger changes, whether it's one big piece or a couple of medium-sized pieces, it's hard to do that without including Rui. And I think if they are serious about Luka, LeBron, and Austin are our 3 pillars, those are the 3 guys we're building around. Those are our big 3. Those are the 3 starters that are locked in. Then Rui becomes the guy where it's like, okay, you probably need to shift more toward a defensive-minded player than a guy who is, for as much growth as he's shown on that end, is still more offensive-minded.
Now, I do think one of the concerns for the Lakers with moving Rui is if you do move him, I mean, we already know they need to get probably multiple centers, but you absolutely have to, because Rui is seen as one of the guys that has some size, right? I mean, 6'8", 7'3" wingspan or so. So he's one of the guys that allowed them to play smaller while still not really being all that small. I mean, we talk about how big the Wolves are positionally and all that. That's true. But the Lakers, aside from the center position, are not that small when you look at how they match up 1 through 4. But Rui is one of those guys that allowed them to get away with playing smaller because he does have good size. So if you decide to move Rui, and let's say you're going to go get a 6'5", 6'6" wing or something to replace him, you really have to make sure that you're getting that center, multiple centers probably, added to the roster, because if you lose him and you don't add more size somewhere else, then you've got I think a bigger hole to plug. So that's part of the equation with moving on from Rui Hachimura when we look at potentially dealing him. And I think it's something the Lakers have to be really careful with, to make sure that you don't find yourself too small and too undersized. Even if Rui's not the best rebounder out there, he's still a pretty big dude, and he actually does an okay job playing at that small ball 5 position when the Lakers ask him to. It's not ideal, but he does an okay job at it as well. So they got to be careful if they do move him, that they are able to add size in subsequent moves. And I think that's going to be critical. The other thing is, when we're talking about, could they go get like a $30 million player? When we talked about the Indiana Pacers, right? Part of the thing that they've got is having such depth on their roster, playing 10 guys in an Eastern Conference Finals game and all of that. If you attach Rui and Gabe, right? Well, there's 2 rotation guys that you're down. In this Lakers team, they only had 5 guys really that they were actually comfortable playing with in a playoff game. So a consolidation trade also becomes difficult. So when you talk about, could you turn Rui and something else into like 2 or 3 guys, I wonder if that's ultimately the path the Lakers need to go down, even if those 2 or 3 guys aren't quite as big and as splashy of names as you might see if you go after one, say, 30 million plus player.
I think for me, the way I would try to approach it is, if I'm trading Rui, I need to be getting a starter back, and I need to be getting either a center or a big.
Lakers may finally get Klay Thompson this offseason thanks to Luka Doncic. Fans of the Los Angeles Lakers have heard the rumors for years. There's always been talk about Klay Thompson making the move to LA to suit up for the franchise his father famously played for. But now, because of Luka Doncic, it seems there could actually be a real opportunity for that dream to become reality. When Thompson famously left the Golden State Warriors last offseason, he did so to seize the opportunity of playing with such a talented player as Doncic. Obviously, playing next to a guy who just took his team to the finals in an improbable playoff run was a highly desirable experience. And so, for around half a season, Thompson got just that kind of experience he was looking for. But with Doncic missing significant time following Christmas and then being traded to Los Angeles in February, the opportunity he essentially moved to Dallas for disappeared in an instant. The situation that Klay envisioned with the Mavericks no longer exists. Now, on one hand, you can say Dallas is inarguably as good of a position as they were before due to winning the lottery and getting the top pick that will allow them to select Cooper Flagg in the draft. Thompson could finally have his opportunity to play with 77. But on the other hand, you can view it from the perspective that the player he looked forward to partnering with most is no longer in his city. So that begs the question, would Thompson desire to finally fulfill the Lakers' rumors and come to Los Angeles to reunite with Luka in Southern California? And you, fan, what do you think about Klay Thompson's situation? Leave your opinion in the comments.